Hey Hacksters, what's up? So again, last weekend was Maker Faire, and I've been wanting to build a sort of familiar for a while. I didn't realize this project was going to become that, but it did. So this is Archimedes, who basically is an adaptation of the Google AIY Vision Kit, which you've seen before. It's got we did a build of it, a live build of the Vision Kit and the Voice Kit as well. The Voice Kit does like voice recognition and becomes like a voice assistant, and the Vision Kit basically has a bunch of demos that do things like emotion recognition, face detection, object identification, and things like that. So if you remember, the Vision Kit includes a camera, which is here, a piezo buzzer, and an arcade button for interfacing, as well as a couple of other features. But those are the main ones that you actually interact with. And so I decided to build it into an owl. Ideally, or originally he was going to sit on a table with a box that would open a lid, and you'll see that in the code. And it didn't quite work out. And then my friend was like, "You're gonna have that sit on your shoulder, right?" And I was like, well, obviously, now I am. That was my friend Mohib, and it was the perfect idea because this is the best possible thing. So before I put this on, I want to show you inside the head, because yes, it is an AIY Vision Kit, and it's just, the head is propped up, you know, everything's like glued inside to the eyes and stuff. The head is propped up by these pieces of armature wire that are attached to the servos, and they're covered with heat shrink tubing just so that they're insulated. And then there's also a little indicator LED that tells you when he is on and ready to start judging people. Boop, boop, boop. Then he just goes on like that. And he looks super cute, if I do say so myself. So he's mounted on a servo pan tilt gimbal, which basically means there's a servo on the top that goes like this, and a servo on the bottom that goes like this. And so his whole body like tilts forward and back, and then his head, you'll see it go side to side. And basically I had to just calibrate those servos so that they would, you know, work within the proper ranges. And then I have an Arduino Maker 1000 back here in this sort of, you know, tuft of scarf that also makes it comfortable to wear. There's 3 USB cables coming out of here. One of them powers the Arduino, one powers the Pi, and one powers the servos. However, I'd like to replace the one for the Arduino with just a LiPo battery, because it can run for pretty long on a beefy lithium polymer battery, and it's got a JST connector for that. So basically, the way that this is mounted, I wanted to show you because it's one of my more durable and comfortable designs so far, which is very pleasing. So there's a loop of armature wire, which is used for sculpting inside of here. Let me get the light better. And I think my sweater is a bit bulky here, so it's not... Oh, I've got my hood under there, that's why. There we go. Okay. So yeah. And then there's more armature wire inside of this bicycle inner tube, which is a recycled one. I actually got this from a local bike shop. And I love this stuff because it's very versatile. You know, it's stretchy and it looks like decent. It looks kind of finished, but it's also upcycled, which makes me happy. And then you just sort of wrap it around, and that's how I get enough support for the torso for him to actually stay on my shoulder, because shoulder mounting something like this could be a huge pain. Like just trying to attach it to the shoulder itself is not really going to work. You really need a kind of harness to hold it on. And so that is how Archimedes is attached. And I took this to Bring a Hack, the Bring a Hack dinner post Maker Faire at BJ's. And when I took him off at the end of the night, not only did I feel like something was missing, but everyone was like, whoa! Like, it's so weird to sort of see him as a separate entity. You got to see that first, so anyway. A note on the beak. So I wanted to talk about what things went wrong with Archimedes. When I first printed Archimedes' head, there was a Cthulhu-like profusion of filament tentacles on the bottom of his face, and that was suboptimal. So I did keep a picture and a video of what that looked like. You know, I can probably pull that up actually. So I ended up having to cut that off, and that was like where the beak was. So I actually have been experimenting with cutting up CDs to make mosaics, and it's a nice shiny material, and it's pretty thin, and it turned out to be very durable. I hot glued it on here. His head has fallen off countless times while I was prototyping this. He's been knocked around a bunch, and he's still pretty happy, so I'm really impressed with like how well he's held up under the stress. There's a ton of footage and stuff from Maker Faire on Instagram, but I wanted to show you in particular the first moment of taking out the support material. I got a lot of comments saying like you could have used less support material, and that's probably true, but I had it only on 10%. I gotta defend myself here. I had it only on 10%, so it wasn't that wasteful considering, and also that's what support material is for. But anyway, you'll see the sort of little Cthulhu face come out here, but also how satisfying it is to see that support material come out. Yeah, you see those tentacles on the front? That's what I was dealing with. I want to get sort of moving along here, so I'm not going to dwell on that too long. But also, so I created the owl head in one document in Onshape, which is a browser-based CAD design, or sorry, repetitive, computer-aided design, CAD 3D modeling program. And so the head and the hat are in here. The hat holds the arcade button. That is my solution for that. Obviously, as you can see here, no tentacles are part of the design. I went into this design a little bit in a former video. But yeah, then when I went to design the wings, I did them in a completely separate document. And it turns out that I designed them rather smaller than I thought. What I thought would be, you know, fairly proportional wings turned out to be rather smaller. And that actually worked really well because I've been thinking about, you know, what makes robots cute and stuff and other things cute. And it turns out that, like, you know, a big part of it is like head to body ratio. If you have a large head and a small body, that turns out to be quite cute. I think because juvenile creatures of many species have larger heads and like smaller bodies, you know? And then also this part was meant to be a tail originally, but it looked really weird when I put it on the back, and it works really well as a little front, plus he's got a kind of a bow tie. These wings and stuff don't actually get in the way when he's trying to move, which is really cool. I'm going to plug him in for you now so you can actually see him in action. And the AIY stuff is going to take a minute to boot up. The rest of the stuff should be pretty quick. Let's plug in the Pi first. The Arduino stuff is almost instantaneous. So another issue that I ran into was that the servos would just sort of, like the battery that I was using, this is pretty common for USB power banks actually, would just sort of turn off after a brief spate of movement. Not a super long cable there. But yeah, and you know, that turned out to be okay because I was using 5-volt power banks, which aren't going to last forever. They're meant to charge your phone off of or whatever. And so, you know, it's good to be able to have it sort of turn off on its own, and then you can push the button on the power bank to start it up again when you're ready to go or when you want to demonstrate it. So that was kind of cool. Your head's a little wonky there, Archimedes. Ugh. Close enough. Anyway, so he's got this kind of cute, jerky little motion. It doesn't actually respond to anything, but that's another reason why having the Arduinos separate from the Pi was actually kind of useful for this event, because I could power either one of them separately, and then the whole thing wouldn't, you know, go down if one of the batteries ran out of juice. An interesting thing is that Archimedes can actually pick up faces from a camera, and so once the Pi actually boots up, you'll see that he's judging my emotions. I found out, so another interesting thing about this, programming-wise, I believe, based on observing his behavior, that the way that it judges emotion with the joy detection demo is that it assigns basically joy points for every bit of joy that it perceives in your face. And so that means that every time he stops seeing a face, the joy points gradually diminish. And that means that he always ends up thinking people are the saddest possible and makes this little sad noise, which is kind of sad, yeah. Oh yeah, so he pauses every now and then because there's still some code in there to lift the lid of the box that would hold stickers or whatever. I never managed to figure that out, so I was building this little box out of Legos, and I used little Lego hinges to open up the box, and I had another servo inside to do that. Didn't quite, I never found a nice way to do it, and then by the time it was like time for Maker Faire, it was like totally going to be a shoulder mounted thing. So that came out way better than expected. I always find that wearable projects are the most fun to bring to an event because they just go around with you and you can kind of tell people, you know, how they work and stuff. You don't have to bring everyone over to your thing or like haul it around. It's really easy to work with. And in this case particularly, I really love personally seeing wearable projects that go beyond LEDs. LEDs are cool, and there's tons of cool stuff people are doing with them. There's also light up stuff with like fiber optics and stuff, and like EL panel and EL tape. If you haven't looked into those, totally do. But I think that it's interesting to incorporate more animatronics. I've always been drawn to that. So if you've seen a Nook Viprex like spider dress or my brainwave powered wings, those are also on Hackster. Then yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about, I think. So I also wanted to show you the Hackster project for this, which includes basically all of this info, including what you'll need to build it, and the 3D files, and like how it all works, and the demos and stuff. That AIY kit really isn't turning on. Oh, it wasn't pushed in all the way. Ugh. So it takes a few minutes for this to start up, actually. But yeah, you can get all the bits there. So yeah, another thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of things that went wrong, because it's easy to talk about the stuff that went right, and I've been kind of doing that all weekend, is about the code. So the AIY kit runs on Python, which is great and really friendly for people who are kind of new to code, and there's plenty of like Python robotics modules that will make your life easier, and that's super cool. So I'm really looking forward to messing around with this. For the time being, it comes with a servo example in the GPIO 0 examples folder. So if you go to the examples folder for Google AIY Vision Kit, then you'll see the joy, like a separate joy folder inside of there for the joy detection demo. There's also one called GPIO 0, and that shows you how to interface with all with the little GPIO pins that are included. And I actually did get that working, so I was able to run the servos off of the Vision bonnet. But when it came to mashing that up with the joy detector code, it didn't actually want to do it. There was something, I think maybe there were too many things going on, oh! So that's his little boot up noise, and you can see that the green LED is now showing that he's watching. And you can also see that he thinks that people are really sad. I'm smiling! There we go. So like he always goes back to thinking people are shush. Anyway, it's cute, right? So that's all I gotta tell you about Archimedes. Go check out the tutorial. You can also find the link at bit.ly/robotowl. I'm gonna keep trying not to get poked in the eye by his eyebrow. And I really hope, I'm planning on bringing him to like a number of events in the future, so I hope that you come and say hi. And I'll be happy to tell you all about what's going right and wrong with Archimedes at the moment. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome rest of your What the Wednesday.